So I thought that for this session we can think about our motivation. Why are we here right now in this moment? So you can have this individual motivation, I want to improve, whatever the motivation may be. But let's consider, we're going to talk about 4 immeasurables. So 4 immeasurables are immeasurable in the sense of there's no limit on the connection that you have with others. So you're not saying, I want to only connect with certain others, the ones I like. I want to disconnect from those I don't like. We're not saying that. But in the 4 immeasurables, we're saying, I want to connect with everybody, all beings. So, at least in our motivation, we can do this. Maybe in our everyday life, it's much more difficult. But in our motivation, we can open up our minds and our hearts to the situation of others and wanting to benefit others, wanting to help others. So then, as we've said before, in order to benefit and help others, we also need to benefit ourselves. We need to improve ourselves. So when we make our motivation, I want to benefit others, then also it puts some pressure on the self. In order for me to benefit others, I must improve myself. I must do something about my own wisdom, my compassion, my way of interacting with others. So we're going to talk about the 4 immeasurables. Maybe not popular words that we're going to use. Like I said, I was talking to this company the other day and I said, oh, you know, it's an incredible company and you're using compassion. And they were sort of horrified, you know, no, we don't use compassion. Then later I said to them, oh, you're working with love. And they said, oh, no, we're not doing that. So maybe we need to go beyond the words and think about the feeling. You know, how do I want to work? Which way do I want to have connection with others? So we have 4. We start off with number 1. I'm on the move. They're called 4 immeasurables. So this is loving kindness. And the main quality that we're developing through loving kindness is communication. So the definition of love is, I want you to be happy. Not, I want to fall in love with you, I want to get married with you, I want to have a relationship with you. It's not that type of love. It's loving kindness is, I want you to be happy, and I'm going to try and do something, if I can, to make you happy. So it's also active. It's not just, may you be happy, but there's also an activity involved. What can I do in order to make you happy? So it's not sitting back and saying, oh, I hope everybody's happy, you know, and that's it. There's no involvement. The involvement is through good communication, using kind words, then trying to help the other in whichever way you think they need to be helped, or in whichever way they say they need to be helped. So loving kindness is the direct antidote to aggression. So aggression or aggressive behavior is the antidote. Hatred and anger. It's also the antidote for these. So somebody who has an aggressive problem, they're too aggressive, or they have hatred towards somebody, or they have anger towards somebody, the direct antidote for these negative emotions is loving kindness. So it doesn't mean that you can just think, I'm going to work with loving kindness and everything's going to change. Because you're going to find it extremely difficult to work with loving kindness, to communicate with kindness, and to be able to have that motivation in your mind, may you be happy. So think about the enemy, the person at work, if you have one, or the person in your life, if you have one, the person who really doesn't like you, does not want you to be happy, does not want you to be successful, right? So you think of that situation, and then can you respond with loving kindness, which means you're not aggressive, you're not going to respond with hatred, and you're not going to be angry. You can then see how difficult it is, because in response to somebody being very negative, usually we want to be more negative. So you hit me and I hit you twice. You know, you take my eye, I take both. You know, that sort of thing. So, of course, you know, this is the normal reaction. When somebody does something negative to me, I want to respond with something negative. But in this case, we're deciding that we want to have the value of loving kindness. And so that means coming from the place of, I want you to be happy no matter what you're doing. So it's not conditioned on what they're doing to you, but on what you believe in. So this is quite different from saying, if you treat me properly, I'll treat you properly. You treat me nicely, I'll treat you nicely. It's not on that basis, but it's on the basis of, I believe in loving kindness. So this loving kindness behavior increases honest communication, open communication, removes the aggression from the communication and from the body language. Then also helps to reduce hatred and anger, which is very important when you're trying to communicate with somebody. If you really don't like somebody, it's very hard to communicate with them unless you remove the anger and the hatred. So then you want to know, how do I remove the anger and the hatred? So there's a phrase connected with this. I often give this as homework. May you be happy. So I often give this to groups whenever I'm teaching, that if you have a problem with conceiving how I can interact with others from this point of view, then the way to start is in the morning, think, today I want to wish everybody happiness. So the way to make you happy is to make others happy. Then the way to change your view of others is to start thinking the first labeling thought. So this is when it's going to get a bit difficult. The first labeling thought is when you look at shape and color. Okay, you know shape and color, right? So you look at shape and color, which happens to be a human being, and from your mind there's a projection onto the shape and the color I don't like. Right? It's just shape and color, but you've decided I don't like. Maybe based on history or based on something you don't even understand. I can tell you, for many, many years, I had a problem with people wearing blue and green. So if they were wearing a green top and blue pants, automatically my mind would say, this is not right. He should go home. And he's probably also thinking, I should go home, right? So my mother was Irish, and she used to say, blue and green should never be seen except with a colour in between. So you've got these two colours, there should be this colour for some reason between them, and apparently it's got something to do with Irish folklore, I don't know. But anyway, I grew up with this sort of saying, and you know, when you're going past a ladder, you can't walk underneath the ladder, and black cats, and salt, you have to throw over your shoulder, and I grew up with all of these sort of things. So I used to see in groups, people wearing blue and green, and I think, no, this is not right. And I think, but why? Why is this mind discriminating against somebody who's wearing blue and green? And it took me a long time to figure out it was my mother repeatedly saying these things over and over, and this becomes part of the operating program. It's what you're projecting out onto the world. Now, if I evaluate with logic, is there any problem with him wearing blue and green? I think, of course not. What's the problem? There is no problem. But I'm making the problem from my own mind. So I'm using discrimination against somebody who's wearing those colors without a basis of logic. There's no logical reason why he can't wear blue and green. But because of my training, then the discriminating mind says, this is wrong. Now, if it was a customer, it could be, this is wrong, he's a customer. This is wrong, he's a customer. Then the customer, the person you're talking to, or the employee, or whatever it is, has a feeling of confusion because the communication is not clear. It's not coming from a point of clarity. So the first point about the four immeasurables, loving kindness, increasing positive communication, whether it's just communication in the sense of being here, or in the sense of spoken communication. Then you have loving kindness as an antidote, the opposite to aggression, hatred, and anger. So basically I say to people, the more you're angry, the more you're moving away from those that you like and that you love. There's a distancing. Okay? So you know, when you're angry, you don't feel close to people, you feel more distant to them. And then the result to that, especially in work, is that they become more difficult to control and more difficult to communicate with. So the more you communicate with anger, the more problems that you have. Because I think we also need to make a differentiation, a separation between the person and the behavior. Okay? If we separate the two and we say, well, that person's they have angry behavior, but they're not an angry person. Because when we say angry person, it's as if it's together, very difficult to change. But when we see behavior, then this anger is coming from somewhere inside, provoked by causes and conditions, that person can change. And so I think if we want to discriminate, if we want to say we don't like something, don't like the anger, don't like the hatred or the aggression or whatever it is, don't like that. But like the person or love the person, wanting them to be happy, wanting them to have a better life. Because if you see somebody who's very angry or aggressive, what you often see is a very unhappy person, right? And so when you see that really unhappy person, you may want to back away from them or stay away from them. You may not want to communicate with them. But in this case, we're stepping forwards. We're saying, may you be happy. I'm not going to interfere in you and your life. If you want to be angry and aggressive, that's up to you, you know. I'm not responsible for you. But still, in whatever you're doing, may you be happy. So that whatever you do back doesn't harm me as much as it would have harmed me before. If we're looking for good responses, we don't always get good responses. You know? You're kind, you're not aggressive, you're not angry, and what you get back is unkindness, aggression, hatred. And you think, but why me? You know, what have I done? I'm doing things in a nice way. So if we're looking for reward, we often don't get the reward. So this is working with, may you be happy, but not looking for something back. Just, I see you suffer, may you be happy in your suffering. So this is quite different. When you start working with it, it's quite different because you see the problems and you wish people to come out of the problems, but they're still responsible for it themselves. It's from my side, I am not going to increase your suffering. From my side. You can have the capability to make them suffer. You know, if they're working for you, working with you, working in your area, and you don't like them, you can find a way to increase their problems and their suffering. did you hear about... No, I'm not saying anything. You know? Or did you see what so-and-so did? No, but I'm not saying anything. So in a subtle way or in a gross way, you can take the advantage. You can actually help them to become more unhappy and more aggressive and have more hatred. Or you can wish them well. Which way do you decide to go? Because at the end of the day, when you wish them well, you go home and you can live with yourself. Right? You can live with who you are and what you've done. But if you've taken the other path, taking advantage, running them down, saying something bad about them, sharpening the knife, if you do any of these things, then at the end of the day, it's difficult to live with yourself, right? Because you know what you've done. And sometimes we have taken advantage of people. Sometimes we have said bad things about people. But then what happens? Do you feel better for it? Do you feel a better person because of doing this? When you check, you discover that you don't feel better. So how do we retrain the mind so it doesn't respond from the past aggression? So I think, take a Sunday, a day when you're not going to work, maybe a day when you go shopping or you go to the mall or whatever it is, you're with the family. And during that day, you keep thinking, whenever you see somebody, may you be happy. It's fairly easy with the family, right? So may you be happy, may you be happy, may you be happy. And then watch the response of the mind. Because this is like a mirror. We're showing actually what's inside the mind, the response to may you be happy. And then you start to use it in, say, work situations. And then you start to deepen your experience of, if my aggression is going to make you unhappy, why would I use my aggression in response to you? Why would I do that? And you've got to have a deep-seated experience, habit of may you be happy. We don't usually have this habit. Yeah, I want you to be happy. But it's not a very deep experience. Whereas when you keep saying this to yourself, what it does is it puts a similar thought into the mind stream. And gather together all those similar thoughts, it becomes a very powerful habit. Over time, it changes the way you view the world, because you have this new habit. There's probably some scientific study that says it's completely correct, but I'm just telling you that my experience of how you change is you start with something that's uncomfortable, and you keep doing it, and it becomes more and more comfortable. And that becomes your operating system rather than the aggression or the anger or the hatred. You can't have both in your mind. So if you've got may you be happy, you can't hold in the mind simultaneously anger, aggression and hatred. You can't do it. So you can't have this and this, opposites, at the same time. So the more you train with may you be happy, the more you're removing the may you be unhappy. And my ability to make you unhappy. It's not just may you be happy, but I'm also removing may you be unhappy and my part in that story. My ability to make you unhappy. If the boss says to me, do you think I should give him promotion? I said, well, it's not sure. That's my ability to make you unhappy. And people can use these occasions to make you unhappy or to make themselves happy. But this type of ability is not true happiness. Stopping you from getting promotion doesn't give me real happiness. It actually gives me suffering, right? So this is when you're working with this type of thing, it brings up negative thoughts to the surface. Would we take opportunity? Would we take that time to put the knife in? Would we do it? Or even on a very, very small level, would we do it? So it's good to check.